Welcome everyone. Today we're doing top 20 most sold fish or most popular fish from our store. I was going to do a top 10, but that didn't seem like it was enough. So each one of these I'm going to talk about why I think it's kind of a big seller. And this might be a tip if you're running a fish store or if you're just wondering what's popular and why people like it. The number one sold thing all year, Amano Shrimp. I think these are popular because they're an algae eater. I think they're under $5. I think they, being a cleaner fish and go into nano tanks, means that everyone can buy it. And that's always a big thing. If you have a big Oscar, you have a small tank, that customer can't buy it, right? But Amano Shrimp are used to clean up tanks and planted tanks, which is kind of what we specialize in. And I think just everyone kind of wants to try their hand at shrimp. So, number one sold item. Number two, neon tetras. Now, we might have thought it'd be a different type of tetra, but being that they're the cheapest and kind of cheapest to pretty ratio, we sell a lot of them, and a lot of people come back and buy more. I think when you see them, you're seeing them right now, you see like, oh, I see the appeal of that fish, and really they do shine when you have a planted aquarium and a big school of neon tetras. It is hard to beat that, and it's just a great look. Next up, fancy guppies. Now, there's so many color varieties. They're Livebearers. They're just a beautiful fish. They're actually my personal favorite fish, and that I'll bring that up in that depending on who works at the store, it will totally skew the results. So when I was working at the store, the first 4 years we were open, guppies was our number one fish being sold. It was my favorite fish, right? And depending on the employees that are working, if they're working the weekends or not the weekends, busy times or not, that will have an impact on what does sell. Also, availability really plays into that, but in general, remember, if the employees like it, chances are they're hunting out good specimens or really taking care of them. When you go to buy them, they're going to be really healthy as well. Kind of a pet fish, you know, it's like, ooh, I like that one. I'll take care of it. I'll get the extra water change. Number four, Cardinal tetras. Very close to neon tetras. They cost a little bit more. They school a little bit tighter. And in general, they get a little bit bigger than neon tetras, but you know, we can see the popularity of neon tetras. No wonder why Cardinal tetras would be popular as well. The thing to know is their color goes head to tail, where a neon tetra has that blue head, red tail to them. And so you kind of get a little bit of an upgrade, if you will, when you get the Cardinal tetra. Number five, cherry shrimp. Again, shrimp are popular on the list. They're bright red. They look super cool. They're the easiest to breed. They look great in live planted tanks, and they make great feeders for puffer fish and other stuff. So if you get too many in your planted tank, anyone else in your fish farm repertoire will love to eat it. Number six, this one shocked me. I don't consider this to be a high selling fish, but Ember tetras. Nice red color, stays fairly small, so it fits that nano tank, and it's going to look great against plants. I just would have never, if you had asked me, is that one of your best sellers? I would not have named that. So, shock to me, but I love this fish, and I do keep it, and I can see why people would want to keep it. They're hardy and easy and colorful, and yeah, great fish. Number seven, Nerite Snails. Now, that encompasses all types. Olives, kind of onions, little spiked ones, horned ones, all of that. This, again, I think chimes in on that. I've got an algae problem, and pretty much every aquarist has an algae problem. They got some algae, maybe it's a hair algae, maybe it's a spot algae. These guys are really good at eating green spot algae. They don't make a ton of other snails because they can't hatch in fresh water, so they lay little white eggs, but they don't, mass produce. So that's why people are drawn to them. Now, a lot of the species we've talked about so far and we'll talk about, we do have care guide videos on. So if you search on YouTube, you'll be able to find a video from us on most of these, and it'll go into water parameters and all of that type of stuff. And this is mostly why I think they're selling well and just giving you a list. So maybe you go, well, I want to look at these. Why are they selling so well? Usually it's because they're amazing creatures. Next up, number eight, Otocinclus. These little catfish have the little sucker mouths. They stay small. They're great at eating brown algae like diatom algae and stuff like that. They're under $5, and they're not aggressive at all. So they can live with shrimp. They can live with almost anything that won't eat them. And I think they've just been very popular in the hobby for a long time. Number nine, Rummynose tetras. I would have thought that would have been higher up on the list. They're one of my absolute favorites. One cool thing about them, when I was working at the store and I would go to sell them, what I like about them is they're a canary in the mine shaft. If they're losing the red on their nose, if it's all stressed out, it won't have that vibrant color in the nose. You might see something going on with the water. You might see that there's an aggressor in there, someone chasing them. But you can see from across the room, is the tank doing all right? Yeah, my school of Rummynose, they all have bright red noses. They look good. And it's really nice to have that, especially if you're injecting CO2 and other things into your aquarium. They'll let you know, like, oh, they've lost the red on their nose. Put some attention to this tank right now, even in the middle of Christmas break. Number 10. Green neon tetras. Now these fish look amazing. It's hard to capture it on camera, but basically when you kind of look down at them at an angle, they really do look green, where if you look at them straight on, they look blue. So that shimmer that they've got is hard to capture with a camera, but they stay small. They're great nano fish, and honestly, they look really, really good in a big school. So I think that's what leads to big numbers and sales. Number 11, blue velvet shrimp. You got reds? Why not get some blues? And blues can be one of the harder colors to get if you're not doing Cardinal tetras or neon tetras. Basically, you're forced to go with something like a blue velvet shrimp. And they're just so cool because they reproduce. They're not hard to get going, just like cherry shrimp. You can sell them off, you can trade them, you can feed them, all of those things. Number 12. Kuhli Loaches, danger noodles, whatever you want to call them. These squiggly little guys love to live in the roots in your planet tank and just go around and scavenge. They're, definitely kids are attracted to them. Lots of people are attracted to them because they look like no other fish. They're little snakes, and they're not aggressive. They typically won't eat snails, or I haven't really even see them eat shrimp. I'm sure they eat some little shrimplets, but not enough to make a difference. And honestly, if you've never kept them, you should. Even if you're kind of afraid of snakes, they're such a great thing to have in your aquarium, and they're just cool to see. They're very nocturnal, though, so you only get to see them kind of lights are dim or maybe in the morning, that kind of thing. Next up, Endler's Livebearers, so kind of a distant cousin of the fancy Guppy. These guys stay smaller, so they're a little more suited to nano tanks. They're not as finicky when it comes to pHs, and they're a very good beginner fish. And so I think that's why we sell a lot of them, is people can get that experience of, oh, I've got a family, we want to breed some fish. The kids get excited. Well, I get excited too, but everyone gets excited when there's new baby fish. There's a lot of different color forms now, and they're just very hardy, and they're a live bearer, so it's great. Number 14, Nerite Rasboras, also known as the chili rasbora. If you've ever seen one of these fully colored up, they speak for themselves. They look absolutely amazing, and they stay really small, which means they're great for nano tanks, but they look amazing in a bigger tank with a giant school. They're not the cheapest fish, but they are totally sought after when it comes to nano schools. I keep threatening, I want to do 1,000 of these somewhere because they look so amazing. Number 15, mystery snails. These guys get big, not quite golf ball size, but pretty big, and they kind of have a personality. Kind of reminds me of SpongeBob, Gary, the snail, right? They eat algae and leftovers. They don't really reproduce if you kind of get one. I mean, it's possible for them to carry some babies basically into your tank, that type of thing. But you can get one. They do lay their eggs up above the water, which is nice. So if you're trying to control population, you can do that. You get those bold colors in them, and they're big, and so they're loved by a lot of people, especially the younger generation, where it's like, I want to buy a pet, and it's like, oh, there's my snail, I'm gonna name it. And you can get that for your family. So definitely love them. And they're also could be used for very giant puffers if you needed, but rare because they're expensive enough that it doesn't make financial sense. Number 16, exclamation point rasboras. Again, nano fish, look pretty cool, and it gives you the ability, if you have that 20-gallon tank and you want the large school effect, you can do that with these nanofish. An exclamation point rasbora is cheaper than something like a chili rasbora, and so you can get 20, 30 of these things going and get that really cool nature schooling effect even in a small aquarium. 17, platies. I love platies. Bright, bold color, get to that 3-inch plus solid thing. They're livebearers, so they give birth to live fish. I love this fish. I keep them in my fish room. Even to this day, they're considered a beginner fish, and everyone has those. Everyone has them because they're amazing. It's like, oh, why wouldn't you keep them? I always wonder when people say, too many people keep those, I don't want those. Like, well, everyone keeps a dog too, but dogs are amazing. Platies are amazing too. If you haven't dabbled in them, get yourself some, and make sure you watch a care guide on them because they do want harder water and things like that, but they're amazing, amazing fish. Number 18, Silvertip Tetras. These guys are very fun when you get them in big schools, and that's what leads to their sales numbers. When you get them kind of in that 30 to 50 or more and up, you can put your hand on the tank and they'll chase it, they'll go back and forth and do all these cool behaviors. And when people interact with that at the store, they end up wanting to build their own colony of them, and so they might, buy them 12 at a time, and eventually once you get there and you get that cool effect and your friends come over and they do it, it's a really cool effect. The males look amazing, and then they look good in a planted tank, and they cohabitate with so many other fish as well. They're just really fast to get to food and everything, so make sure you watch a video on that if you're gonna keep them and realize what you're getting into there. But great fish. Number 19, cherry barbs. Cherry barbs, great color on the males, a little more drab on the females, relatively easy to breed for an egg scatterer. They look amazing in a planted tank. I think that's why people are drawn to them. They got that nice body shape, deep dark red color. You can also give them in long fin varieties or a veil tail variety. And I think there's a classic fish when you're going, what can I put with that? Cherry barbs will work pretty good. Even though they got the barb in the name, they are not aggressive like a tiger barb or like an Odessa barb would be, or a golden barb. They're much more mellow, more like a Tetra, really. And number 20, the last one, and the first Corydora to make the list, Pygmy Corydoras. These cute little nano guys get sold in big numbers because a lot of people have smaller tanks and they want those little cleanup guys. I love them to death. There's a lot of other Corydoras that are, down in the list a little bit that also sell. I think the next one was Panda Corydoras. But Corydoras, when I work in the store, they're really high up on the list because I love Corydoras. My name's Cory, and yeah, great fish. So if you're into some bottom dwellers, get yourself some Corydoras. The pygmy ones are fun. Also Habrosus or Hastatus are very fun as well as Sturbis and others. So hopefully you enjoyed this list. Now you know what the most sold fish are at Aquarium Co-op, and I think this would translate to a lot of stores that are like mine that aren't carrying African cichlids and Central and South American cichlids. And hopefully there's some new things on there for you to kind of check out and maybe bring home and keep in your aquarium.